Nigeria's government has announced plans to stop subsidies on petroleum products. Managers of the petroleum sector say the government can no longer bear the cost of the subsidies as it spends 120 billion naira every month to keep the pump price of fuel at current levels. As a result, citizens will now have to pay the actual cost for the commodity. 24 hours after, the country's regulatory body said it will maintain its current ex-depot price of petrol until the end of negotiations with organized labor. The NNPC also assured Nigerians that the price will be kept at 162 naira per litre, and arrangements will be made for robust stock of petroleum products in all its strategic depots across the country to keep the nation well supplied, while warning marketers not to increase prices or hoard fuel.
Subsidy regime, but we are in a situation where we are trying to exit this subsidy or the underpriced sale of PMS until we come to in terms of the full value of the product in the market. What is also useful is a very good opportunity to also say that PMS today sells across our borders anywhere above 300 naira to the litre, any of our borders, any of our neighbors, and in some places up to 500 to 550 naira to the litre. And I'm sure you have seen in very media, I just saw one today, that in some countries, the Nigerian fuel is the alternative fuel. In fact, the primary fuel, and we are supplying almost everybody in the West African region. I know also that it's very difficult to continue to afford this because we have our own issues, and that's why eventual exit from this is completely inevitable. When that will happen, I do not know, but I know that there are engagements that are going on. Government is very considerate about the natural impact of price increases to our transportation and other consumer segments of our society. And as soon as those engagements are taken to very logical conclusions, but I'm sure that the market price of these PMS will be allowed to play at the right time.
Well, Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Commission and Corporation, NNPC there, Mele Kyari. But all of these developments came after the announcement of the government's approval of $1.5 billion to rehabilitate the Port Harcourt Refinery in Rivers State. Energy expert and privatization advisor Dan Kunle now joins us from our Abuja studio to speak on this subject. Mr. Dan Kunle, thank you very much for joining us. Good afternoon, and thank you very much indeed. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon, Abati.
Good afternoon.
Yes, please, Dr. Abati. Good afternoon and compliment of the season.
Yeah, same to you. Good to see you.
May I say congratulations? May I say congratulations for the survival of last year and the good work your team have done in the last 1 year, the COVID year.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate all the effort and I can see the progress you have made. So I'm welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
All of that goes to the Arise team, I believe, you know. But we thank God for everything. But very quickly, let me ask you, the petroleum subsidy regime and the statement made this week by the Group Managing Director of NNPC that a subsidy regime is unsustainable. And also by the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Chief Timipri Silva, that we need to be very realistic and truthful with regard to the pump price of fuel in this country. Now, what is the way out? What do you think is exactly happening? Because all of a sudden, for months, we've been told that there was no subsidy and our market forces are taking over since March, April. And now government has more or less admitted that, government has been subsidizing fuel consumption in Nigeria. Now, isn't that illegal? Isn't that a criminal, submission, acceptance, considering the fact that in the 2020 and in the 2021 budgets, there was no appropriation by the National Assembly for subsidy, fuel subsidy?
Okay. Thank you very much. Let us look at it like this, Dr. Abati. It's good we accept this reality, and we must congratulate the president, who is the Minister of Petroleum, and the Minister of State, Tim Sliver, and the GMD of NNPC, Mele Kyari, for the courage to, for the first time, accept the reality. When we were young to go to school in 1973, some of us, even though I went to school late, 73, we had about Petroleum Equalization Fund in 1973, created by General Gowon, to equalize the price of petrol from Lagos to Calabar, Calabar to Sokoto, and Lagos to Maiduguri, and Maiduguri to every cranny of Nigeria. So, and that body still existed today by law. But if you look at the price mechanism of petroleum products since 1973 to date, and the cost of producing oil from 1973 to date, and the level of consumption of petroleum products in Nigeria till today, can you really see why this courage they have displayed now, we should appreciate it. Those of us that are part and participants of the industry, we should appreciate what they have done for coming out once and for all and say, look, this subsidy is not sustainable. The amount is debilitating. The amount is not good for the economy. It's not healthy. We cannot carry it. So in a short word from me, as an industry observer and a participant, the reality is here. So I will want us to encourage them to go full-fledged and free the market. Because deregulation started since 1989 when the Technical Committee on Privatization was set up by President Babangida, headed by late Dr. Hamza Zayad. And from that time to date, deregulation means to open up and allow free entry and free exit. But we have played around this word, and we have not allowed the word to mean anything up till now, in spirit and in letter. So finally, that reality is here. NNPC is going to stop competing with the private sector. The private sector can come in freely and exit when they like. That is the meaning of market forces. So to participate in the downstream sector, to sell petrol and other white products at the market price. So I think it's good, in short, so to enable you move on. It's good. I mean, it's a welcome development.
Okay, how do you explain this? Yeah. You are saying they should open up the market. Chief Timothy Silva talked about that in March and April, and he said that the pump price of fuel will be market determined on the basis of the spot price of petrol. Now, how do you explain that to an ordinary man? To tell him, an ordinary man in 16 states of the Federation who has not collected salaries for the past 3 months, who has had to suffer from the effect of COVID-19 in more than 1 year, and then he knows that Nigeria is one of the largest crude oil producers in the world, and then you tell him that he has to pay 234 naira at the pump price at the fuel station, and that in fact in Sudan, in Cameroon, they pay 500 naira, and you should prepare to pay 500 naira per liter. How do you manage that in terms of the social consequences? Because, I mean, I see you are supporting what you call the realism of what government is doing.
Yes, Dr. Abati, there are many issues that you have to try to situate in this very circumstance. When you use the word the ordinary man in some states have not earned salary, even just the saving alone per month by NNPC, the savings of 120 billion per month, if you give a transition period for the Minister of State Petroleum and the GMD, if you give them a transition period of, say, 90 days to transit from the old regime, the regulated regime, to a deregulated regime, say 90 days, the money they are going to save from that 90 days will accrue to the federation account. First, it will accrue to NNPC, so their revenue will at least go up. So, because I know currently they are running a deficit corporation. They are financially in big deficit. So their revenue will go up. Then they will be able to remit more to the federation account. So the federation account again will be able to share more money to the states. So the state can now meet their obligations to the ordinary people. Now, here is the catch. You said the ordinary person may now pay 500 naira. But please, how much does the ordinary person pay in private hospitals, in private schools, on bad roads? Do you quantify how much they pay on bad roads? Do you know, can you quantify how much they pay for insecurity, the failed security environment in which we live? How much does the poor man pay? So can you calculate how much poor man pay for water failure, for non-availability of water and basic health facilities? So when we focus too much on petrol as a nation, petrol, that is part of the error, the abnormality we needed to correct all these years and we have not corrected. So I'm very happy that President Buhari is taking this bold step. For the first time, it appears some people have been able to summon courage to tell him that, Mr. President, sir, this hole is too big. We cannot continue. We cannot fill it. So there are many failures around us all these years. So it's not only petrol. So if you remove it today, look, I give you, Dr. Ruben Abati, do you know that even the ordinary man you are saying that cannot pay, he will pay. We were told one time in this country that ordinary man cannot have phone.
Anyway, Mr. Kunle.
But when we deregulated, ordinary man could pay for phone. So Mr. please, Kunle, okay, let me allow you now move on.
Yes, yes, the ordinary man now has phones, but I don't think the analogy is the same as the knock-on inflationary, galloping inflation effect that we're likely to have with regard to the pump price of fuel. But we'll take a short break now. When we return, the conversation will continue. Mr. Kunle, please stay with us. Welcome back to THISDAY Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Our guest is still Dan Kunle, an energy economist and a privatization advisor. And he's been talking about the subsidy regime with regard to the downstream sector and the pump price of petrol in Nigeria. Well, Mr. Kunle, before we went on break, we were talking about the ordinary man, how he's likely to react. But how exactly can we transit to a market forces-driven downstream sector? I think that's the big elephant in the room. Now, before now, the Minister of State for Petroleum, Timi Presiva, was talking about compressed natural gas and government bearing the cost of that, and it will help people, it will make things easier. But we've been through that road before. Whether we are talking about compressed natural gas, or we're talking about, is it liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, and electric vehicles, and all of that. Well, didn't we try it in 2012? And the ordinary man said no. How do we communicate? How do we make that transition? What should government be doing to convince the people that they need to pay more for petrol?
Okay. Dr. Ruben Abati, I think you and me, we have a job to do. And the job is how we are going to educate the public.
I'm no longer in government. I'm no longer in government. Yeah, no, it's not my job to make the argument.
National Orientation Agency, the National Orientation Agency and the Federal Ministry of Information, I think they have a big job at hand. Because there are many issues you discuss. Just now, the conversation is centered on transition. We need the ministry and the NNPC and PPRA, they need a transition period. Yeah, we need to have time to transit from the old regime, regulated regime, to an open market. Yeah, as I have proposed that maybe about 90 days, but you need to engage them properly during that period. You also need a transition period for the utilization of compressed natural gas. You see, there are many things that government want to do at the same time. Let me digress a bit. You see, the pressure on a country like Nigeria today, there are three pressures on a country like Nigeria today. The energy pressure, that is the energy mix, because advanced sciences have put pressure on the whole world. Advanced sciences, material science, energy sciences, where oil is going to go displaced with gas. Gas is going to maybe give way to solar energy and super batteries. Now, Nigeria is under pressure from that angle, that's energy. The second pressure Nigeria is going through, all nations in the world are going through this, but okay, you must think locally first. The second pressure Nigeria is going through today is climate change. The pressure from climate is not a small pressure. And I'm still watching how this country wants to go about that. It's a global phenomenon that you cannot wish away. The third pressure that many people are unconscious of is the pressure from the 2G nations. The class of the two nations that are trying to find their supremacy position in the world. That is China and America. So these three forces, you need a nation like Nigeria, you need to have a think tank that we 24 hours non-stop be thinking of how they are going to respond to all these things. So the internal problem you are seeing today about trying to adopt gas utilization for your automobiles, you need to have a lot of think through, because all the about 17 million vehicles on Nigerian road today, what is their model? What year of manufacture were they? So if you are going to convert them, there is something called conversion kits. If you want to convert your car now, your current car, to burn gas, either CNG means compressed natural gas, and LPG means liquefied petroleum gas, which is the cooking gas in your home now. Okay, if you take that cylinder and you want to screw it into the car and convert your combustion to gas, you need a conversion kit. So all these issues coming the same time, you want the citizens of Nigeria to convert their car to CNG or LPG, auto gas. It's another serious issue, because you need massive education, you need investment in the kits. And some of these vehicles are on our road today are not brand new vehicles, because what's the percentage of brand new vehicles on Nigerian road today? I don't think they are up to 10%. 90% of the vehicles on the road in this country today are tokumbos, because you know yourself the cost. So let us leave this issue of gas for now. Yes, we have been on this over the years. I was part of the team in 2007, 2008, 2009. We were all over the world. 2010, we were in Qatar. We were in South Korea. We were in Indonesia. We saw what Pertamina did. We were in Brazil, Rio. I was in Rio. We saw what they did in Brazil. So we need to, there's a lot of work about that one. It's not something I think we can deal with here now, this issue of CNG and LPG conversion. I know the committee set up by the minister, they are trying to do a good job, but it's a very massive job. It's not an easy one. But to transit for the deregulation of the downstream sector, I think the government, PPRA, they need to sit down now and engage the labor and said, look, we need 90 days or thereabout to transit from the old price, because there's a carrying cost. There's a carrying cost to cut off from the old price to new price. There's a carrying cost, because the stock you have in your hand currently, you have incurred money to buy it. And now some people will say, oh, let me maximize this. So there may be a shortage gap which they need to plan. There may be a shortage gap, because people will say, don't let me part with this. I want the price to to go up so that I can maximize revenue from this. So I think let us just leave it as it is. On the issue of smuggling across the border, I have always had this feeling. How many vehicles are in Cameroon? How many vehicles are in Chad? Exactly. How many vehicles are in Niger? Even Central Republic of Africa, where to the extent where our fuel goes, how many vehicles are there? So if you aggregate all those neighboring countries, Benin Republic, Togo, the total volume they take is not as significant as what we are consuming daily in this country. We are consuming between 50 to 60 million liters per day in Nigeria. So I don't think all these neighboring countries, so even if the price goes to 500 naira in those neighboring countries, what is the total volume they are consuming? What is the cost of carrying through from Nigeria, the smuggling cost? So those things, if Nigeria can build their domestic economy in a very robust manner, all these neighboring countries can parasite on us. They are not too big to create problem for us. They are very small. We are the one that can create problem for them if we are well organized.
Well, but the federal government,
we have not been too organized. So, yeah.
But the federal government is talking about loss of revenue and the parasitic effect of the neighboring countries, not just Cameroon and the neighboring countries, Togo, Ghana, but all the way to Sudan and elsewhere. There was even a video that has been in circulation over this. But the government is saying that if they could do compressed natural gas, LPG, provide auto gas, that will help many Nigerians to deal with the new cost, because auto gas, they say, is cheap fuel. They have also adopted the option of rehabilitating the refineries. $1.5 billion for the Port Harcourt refinery to start with. What's your assessment of those two options? Because we've been through this road before. Well, under the Jonathan administration, we tried the Sure P. Now we're hearing gas and rehabilitation of refineries. What is the guarantee that the approach by this current administration will work and impress that same ordinary Nigerian who is going to bear the cost?
Well, Dr. Abati, let me answer the first question about this issue of the transborder transactions, that maybe the effect is much. We are losing money to those neighboring countries. You see, every time those propagandas comes up, I laugh, because by my privileged position, I knew the situation of Niger Republic. When CNPC, PetroChina, was doing exploration in Niger, I was privileged to know what they were doing. Niger Republic, when they discover oil there and they proposed to buy Kaduna Refinery, that they will move crude by pipe from Niger to Kaduna Refinery. They proposed to buy Kaduna Refinery for about $103 million in 2006, I remember. President Obasanjo did not approve because the price was too low. But the Chinese agreed that time that they will use their money to build the pipeline from Niger to Kaduna. And they will refine, and then Niger can take their share, and Nigeria can take their share. Okay, that is if the refinery was sold to them. Now, Niger, what is the total volume of petrol that Niger is using per day? So the refinery in Niger does between 20 and 25,000 barrels per day. PetroChina built that refinery there. The same thing in Chad. The same thing they did in Chad. Okay. So if Nigeria say, oh, we are smuggling petrol because petrol is so cheap from here to Niger, so where does the product in Niger goes to? Part of the product in Niger, you say about 10 to 15 trucks, goes to Mali, Upper Volta. So why are we emphasizing so much about that volume that maybe slip into Cameroon or Niger? Why? For me, it's not a very good scientific way of assessing our internal failures. Our internal failures here, because then query the customs. Why did they leave the border so porous for that volume of of fuel that will affect our revenue to go out of the country. Then query them. So you see, then you just have a lot of internal questions to answer. Who imports the petrol that leaks to the neighboring country? Federal government. Who owns the border? Federal government. It's not private, it's not Forte Oil or National or Corn Oil that imported that petrol. It's federal government that imported the petrol because your refineries are not working. And I have said it many times. Petrol cannot be cheap in this country. It is not possible because Nigeria does not do anything competitively. We have comparative advantage to produce oil, but we don't have competitive advantage to produce oil. Nigeria, NNPC today does not produce oil. NNPC is a joint venture partner. And NNPC have what we call production sharing contract with some operators. So NNPC, okay, with their subsidiary in Benin, maybe they produce some oil, but even that must be through a management contract. So we don't really produce oil because we don't have the technology, we don't have the financial capital to produce oil. It is the international oil companies that are producing oil in Nigeria, and you take your share and you get royalties. So you don't have the enabling environment to produce oil competitively. You have 4 refineries, the small refinery in Port Harcourt and the big one. The small is about 60,000 barrels and the big one is about 150,000 barrels. These plus the Warri Refinery and Petrochemical, plus Kaduna Refinery and Petrochemical, 3 combine about 450,000 barrels per day. None of this has produced in the last 3 years, or 4 years, thereabout. And you have seen the losses. See the trajectory of the losses. So, but the GMD of NNPC was courageous enough to say, here are my losses in the last 4 years. What do I do? You understand me now? So how do you sit down and say, okay, this same country can now have petrol cheaply when you have to import every liter of petrol with your money? So calculate, you export crude oil. You now import, you pay freight, you pay insurance, freight and insurance. So you are going to end up here with CIF, cost, insurance, freight. So when the final product arrives at the port, look, Nigeria is a maritime country, but not a competitive maritime country because you don't have deep sea port, you have shallow ports. So you can't even import efficiently. So you cannot be competitive in your importation. Everything we consume in this country is imported, but not imported competitively. We import at very exorbitant price because large vessels, large carrying vessels cannot land anywhere in Nigeria except maybe on a port. That may not even be up to 50,000 tons dead weight. It may just be maybe about 45,000 because the draft is a factor. So all these years, we have not built deep sea ports. So you can't even import petrol cheaply. So when people emphasize so much about the cost of petrol and that, I look at them. Is there anything you can do competitively in this country? You can't even grow cotton competitively, like Egypt, like Morocco, like Pakistan, like Australia. So we must begin to ask our questions among ourselves as the managers of the economy and the political managers in political offices. They must get more conscious of why is everything so exorbitant. So that is about that one. Let's go to the CNG issue and the LPG, please, if you have some luxury of times.
Yes, please go ahead.
The mixed energy issue. Yeah, the mixed energy issues for a country like this. When we were putting pressure in 2009, 2010 for the domestication of cooking gas across the country, is because we saw the climate issue coming. If you use satellite imagery, I was privileged to be involved in satellite imagery. If you see the satellite imagery from the Chad Basin to Sokoto, across like that to part of Mali, you will see the rate at which desertification was coming into Nigeria because population of the north was growing and they were chopping all the woods. So we have opened up the whole north for the desert to come in. So we said, look, let's embrace LPG. I was part of the local petroleum, liquefied petroleum gas association, including the current Minister of Industry. I traveled with him to Qatar in 2010 to discuss LPG utilization in Nigeria. So now, the system did not allow us to actualize what we had in mind. There was a program, the World Bank was involved, international bodies were involved, that look, Nigeria, you need to consume more LPG since your country has so much gas. Now, what happened? We brought the example of Indonesia. Pertamina is the national oil company of Indonesia. They assigned the vice president of Indonesia to transform the cooking method of Indonesia from kerosene and firewood to LPG. He did it in 3 years. Go and check the record. They had massive burning stove for LPG distributed, including small cylinders. So today, Indonesia is virtually all gas cooking country. Nigeria could not do it. Kerosene became the king in Nigeria. Between 2009 and 2014-15, it was kerosene, and we knew the effect of kerosene. Kerosene is high carbon content fuel. It's not healthy in homes. It's not even healthy in the open field, like diesel. So they did not allow us. So this effort that the government is trying to put across now, that everybody should embrace LPG for cooking in homes, is good enough if they can pull it through, because at the moment, the ratio is so low. If we are consuming 300,000 tons of LPG per year in a country of 200 million people, that means even our GDP consumption is lower than Côte d'Ivoire. It's a shame. Brazil consumes not less than 9 million tons of cooking gas a year. Brazil is about 290 to 300 million people now, Brazil. When we were there in 2010, the cylinder they recycle a year was 350 million cylinders a year when we were there in 2010, 10 years ago. So you can see the job that the government has in their hand now to make Nigerian people to embrace cooking gas because it's an alternative, or CNG. It's not a cheap job. It's a very tough job. They need to engage the state government. They need to engage the local government. They need to engage National Orientation Agency. They must. It's massive. It's expensive. And the far north of this country, all the states bordering Niger, Chad, and Cameroon, they must be in the forefront of this program. The propaganda they must be in the forefront, because the desertification is huge. On the part of the south, the southern part of Nigeria, deforestation is becoming very advanced. We took time during Mimiko's tenure in Ondo to go around the forest reserve in Ondo State. There is no more forest reserve. They have been depleted. So we need to work hard. If not, this level of desertification, we will just discover that the country becomes almost a desert. Half of Nigeria will become desert if we are not careful. Well, so let us leave all these deep academic issues, because they become very academic. But let's face this program that government want to do. So I believe governments should embark on a massive campaign for the gas utilization in homes, and then for the gas utilization for the automobile industry. But the caveat is that automobile industry conversion kit is not cheap. I don't know how we are going to do it, because we don't have all the vehicles that, if you watch those trucks that Dangote put those cylinders, those are compressed natural gas. Those are compressed natural gas. Those green cylinders you see on those Dangote trucks, that's compressed natural gas, which means he acquired those vehicles that can burn natural gas, compressed natural gas. So if an ordinary truck on the road is to convert today to compressed natural gas, who pays for the conversion kit, as I have said? So the issue of being cheaper than petrol or diesel is still subject to a lot of cost analysis, cross-cutting cost analysis, cross-cutting. Because you have to say, okay, if this one costs this, how much will that one cost? So where do we situate the difference?
Well, I mean, if I get the information right.
So these are the issues.
Before now,
Mr.
Dan Kunle, I think the Minister of State for Petroleum said that government will bear the cost of the conversion and that there will be centers that will be created across the country where people can convert their vehicles from petrol to compressed natural gas. Can government afford that cost? And do you have any information as to whatever progress may have been made by government in that direction? And I asked you the question about, well, no, before that, you talked about climate change. Now, is that part of this compressed natural gas LPG project? Is that part of decarbonization? And how can Nigeria really key into decarbonization? And finally, one question that I asked, which you've not addressed, this refinery in Port Harcourt and the $1.5 billion rehabilitation fund. What are the big issues in that regard?
Well, Dr. Ruben Abati, the refinery issue, the other questions I'm going to come back to address. The Port Harcourt refinery issues, Dr. Abati, if you check from the archive, you saw my memo to Kachuku, Minister of State, in 2017 on Port Harcourt refinery. If you can Google, you may get some insight to my opinion as at that time. Because as at that time, we were talking of between $290 million and maybe $480 million to fix Port Harcourt refinery historically from 2013, 14, 15 sequence of events with Maria Technimont report as at that time. Now, what has happened between 2017 and 2021 now, I may not know much. But the figure that I saw for Port Harcourt Refinery Rehabilitation was like, well, okay, I don't know the extent, I don't know the integrity of the refinery, I don't know the extent of corrosion, I don't know the extent of the cracks, so that I want to say my position as at 2017 has always been, if LME Petrochemical, that is now in Indorama, is based in Port Harcourt there, not far from the refineries. If LME Petrochemical was built with $1.2 billion, I remember I was involved in the privatization. It was built with about $1.2 billion by federal government then. And Maria Technimont was the consultant. So then the privatization agency tried to privatize it because NNPC was running it. It's a subsidiary of NNPC. But they never got it properly run. So there was a problem. So we tried to privatize it, and the NNPC management was very difficult. They didn't want us to privatize it at that time. And President Obasanjo had to he ordered the police to arrest the then MD of LME Petrochemical. Not to arrest, but to summon him to Abuja. So we eventually got it privatized to Indorama of Indonesia. And they took over. Within 1 year, Indorama debottlenecked LME Petrochemical. And today, it's a fortune company in this country. Many people may not know about Indorama LME Petrochemical. It's in Port Harcourt there. It's a fortune company today. They are doing Train 2 urea ammonia plant now. Train 2. They have built from the polymer plant they inherited from federal government. They have moved from that polymer plant. The polymer plant, Olefin, they produce HDP, LDP, they produce raw material for the plastic industry. Now they have moved to fertilizer production. They have built Train 1, it's already working. They are doing Train 2 now. Now, all the raw material is gas, natural gas, and pure air, oxygen. Okay, now they are doing very well. They have been returning dividend. That is the issue here. They have been returning dividend to federal government since 2008, when I was still in the Ministry of Energy, Gas. They have been returning dividend till today. I think BP is a director on board. NNPC is a director on board also. Now, because federal government still have some share there. Rivers State government also have share. Now, if that is the case, it means NNPC is benefiting greatly from LMA Petrochemical. If you take that example and relate it to Nigeria LNG, Nigeria LNG is controlled by Shell by 51%, Shell, Total, and ENI, 51%, federal government, 49%. And LLNG have always returned handsome dividend to federal government, NNPC. So why has it that the three refineries have never returned dividend to federal government? And federal government owns them 100%. So when the GMD of NNPC came out with those losses over the years, I was very impressed with him because he was not hiding behind one finger anymore. He came out and said, look, I've been running this place with a lot of losses all over the place. So if they now decide in the wisdom of government to repair one with that amount of money, I don't know, it's in the public domain. I don't want to, because I know Technimont is a chemical process engineering consultant. They have done very well in fertilizer all over the world, India, all over the world. So I don't know. I don't want to get involved too much because it's already in the public domain. Federal Executive Council have already given approval. But I would have been happier historically to see that the federal government honor their promise, because government is a continuum. To the arrangement in 2008, when that refinery and Kaduna was taken back from Dangote and Femi Otedola, Blue Star, because they paid and you took it back. And as at that time, they say, oh, if in 2 years it is not fixed, we will call you back. They did not do. So if you take today, if you value that refinery today, just do valuation, technical valuation of that refinery. Take out all the environmental liabilities of that refinery. Environmental liabilities, because I know a lot of things might be going on there. So what you are going to be left of that refinery today may be a scrap value. So if you open it for privatization, if our government, but since I'm not government now and I cannot reverse the hand of government, if our government, I will liquidate the 3 refineries. I will ask lawyers and chartered accountants and petrochemical engineers, Nigerians, to value it and put it on the market for liquidation. And you will see people will buy them for maybe $100 million and invest maybe $200 million like Indorama. And before you know it, they will produce enough for domestic market, regional market, and maybe even for export, if they can produce the fuel of the future. Because the petrol of the future is Euro 5, which is, I'm sure, what Dangote is trying to do in Lagos. So that issue, Dr. Ruben Abati, I want to be very careful because I don't want to in any way be a problem for the entire arrangement they have already done. So I'm neither here nor there. If our government, I will have not entered into that type of a very, because okay, what do you do now? What do you do now with Porako Refinery? What do you do now with Warri Refinery? What do you do now with Kaduna Refinery? Because Chiyoda built Kaduna Refinery. Chiyoda of Japan. JGC, Japan Gas Corporation, built Porako Refinery. ENI and Saipem built Warri Refinery. So now you take only Porako Refinery for repair and rehabilitation. So what do you now do with Warri and Kaduna?
Well, Mr.
So
Dankule,
these are the issues that at times, so, but as we have said, it's still a decision taking. It's better to take decision. Decision may be right, it may be wrong, it may not be too palatable, it may not, so. So well, then on the issue of the whether, yes, please remind me of the other.
No, I asked you the question about decarbonization. How do we key into that? But we have just about 7 minutes left. And I was going to ask you, one of the arguments put forward by the federal government is that they've been talking to organized labor, and that some of the announcements that have been made with the concurrence, the acquiescence, the support of organized labor. So should we expect that the question that I raised earlier about social consequences in case market forces effectively now take over will not be a problem, with organized labor more or less having agreed with the federal government of Nigeria to increase the pump price of petrol?
Okay, thank you very much. The organized labor of this country, the Nigerian Labour Congress, if you remember vividly, 2004 was the first bold attempt by President Obasanjo to deregulate the market. And that was when former governor of Edo, Adam Osmele, was in his best element to mobilize the labor of this country to stop that arrangement. But if you follow the trend, you see, the word deregulation and market forces, all these labor union activists, just check what I'm going to say now. I said it in 2017. Their children today, where are they working? Can the children of the labor union officials and members, can they get job in Port Harcourt Refinery? Can they get job in PPMC? Can they get job in NNPC? Unless by the Nigerian factor, special privilege arrangement. So if they continue to say no, what is the total sum of gain they think they are getting for the common man they represent? So the social consequences, I'm still coming to the issue of climate and decarbonization, but these social consequences you mentioned, it is time we arrange to get the Labour Congress of Nigeria and all the affiliates and subsidiaries of Labour Congress into the classroom to re-educate them that, look, come, some of these things you think you are stopping or you are gaining by stopping it, you are losing 10 times of what you think you are gaining. They said, don't touch NEPA, don't privatize, don't touch NITEL. Today, see the deregulation of the telecommunication industry. They said, don't touch that. They have forgotten that from 1989 to date, deregulation and privatization is the one that has eased the economic space of this country. People don't know. The impact may not yet be felt the way some people want it to be felt, but we need to be consistent with that deregulation and reform. We need to be consistent. I remember when my good friend and brother in Kaduna, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, in the beginning of this government in 2015, he said, we need to kill NNPC before NNPC kill Nigeria. And I had a ride on that time. I said, within the extant law, we must try to unbundle NNPC. That means to privatize NNPC. But people always misconstrue privatization with selling the asset to your friends and brothers. No. So now to go back to the issue. The Labour Congress must know that the reality is here. If you ask former governor of Edo today that, oh, what is your position now? He will tell you, oh no, our effort was the old order. The new order is you have to open up the market. Because we were deregulating and the private sector were investing in the downstream. If you see the amount 40 oil, corn oil, All of them were building petrol stations across the whole country. Dr. Ruben Abati, you will not believe how many tanks and volume of tanks, storage tanks, that are buried across this country by private sector. They borrowed money to build all these facilities across the country. And then suddenly, NNPC again came back to open what you call a retail arm and started selling petrol again at a control price. So why did you push? We sold National Oil, which became Corn Oil. We sold Unipetrol. We privatized Unipetrol, which becomes O&O. We sold AP, African Petroleum, which is now Forte Oil. Maybe it's changing name very soon. So why did the NNPC owned by government money, you now start competing with the private that have borrowed money to spread investment across the country to build domestic capacity for distribution and retailing? So all these things, we must allow the Labour Congress know that you cannot win. They cannot win. They must join the modern trend. You will still have Labour Congress. You will still have Labour Union. But Labour Union today should focus on how to harmonize security and safety for the country, how to enhance the safety of staff at work, how to make sure that there is basic health infrastructure for the country, not about petroleum product every day. Labour Union don't have any other thing in Nigeria to do more than petroleum product. For the last 5 years, how much do they sell petrol per liter in Sokoto or Maiduguri? The same Labour Union members knows how much it is selling in Sokoto or Maiduguri. Is it the same price with Lagos? Why will Labour Congress of Nigeria be justifying the existence of Petroleum Equalization Fund when they know themselves that it's just a drain pipes? So to go back to the issue of climate, let me leave that because
well, you can only do that in 30 seconds because we seem to have run out of time.
Thank you very much. Decarbonization is a task that we cannot run away from.
Well, on that note, I would like to thank you very much for joining us, for your insights, for your contributions, Mr. Dan Kunle.